Welcome to another episode. What are you reading? What are you writing? Thank you so much for joining us today. I have a lovely, lovely guest that I got to meet recently in person. So many of my guests I only know by this little box, but I got to meet Desiree Kannel. Did I say that right?
Desiree Kannel, yes.
Desiree
Mhm.
Kannel. We
Mhm.
we met in her hometown, San Antonio, which was very, very fun, and I think you're going to enjoy her. I am Karen E. Osborne, your host, and I am the author of the new historical fiction, um, suspense, family saga, True Grace. It's out there in the world, plus three other books. And let me tell you a little bit about Desiree. She is a teacher, she is an author, she is a connector. So those are all really cool things. And so she's got two novels out and counting. And the first one is Lucky John, right? Or Johnny. Is
Mhm.
it Lucky Johnny or Lucky John?
Excuse me, it's Lucky John.
Lucky John, yes. So tell us about your writing journey and how, because I noticed you said on your website that you came to writing a little later in life, as I
Hmm.
did.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your writing journey and how Lucky John came about.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. And so yeah, I consider coming to writing, post 40, well, actually 50 as late. And it was a long journey, a lot of twists and turns, a lot of false starts in other careers, but I wouldn't change anything because along the way I picked up all of this knowledge, and sometimes, as you know, it's good to do something and learn. Oh, I don't want to do that. So knowing what you don't want to do is just as important as discovering what you do want to do. And ironically, it was when I was teaching fourth grade that I discovered the writer in me because in California, where I lived at the time, we teach fourth graders writing a lot because they take a state test. So I just discovered that I love teaching it. I love the creativity side of it. And my students did really well. And other teachers were asking me to write the letters home to parents because that was the first time I had people tell me, "You're a good writer, you should do that." And I'm like, "Really? I am." And then it was my students who commented about how I must love writing, and I was like, "Okay, maybe I do." So I took a leave of absence because of other issues with working in public education, but that's for a different podcast. And I never went back to full-time public teaching. I took a few creative writing classes at community college, a couple online, and then I ended up in a MFA program at Antioch University, Los Angeles, which was great because I was surrounded by other writers. I felt I was with my tribe, not too unsimilar to the vibe that we experienced a couple weeks ago at the
Yes.
at our Black Rose Writing Fest. And yeah, I've just been there. And I
So
began with,
how did how did Lucky John come to you? How did you?
well, so I wrote the first chapter of Lucky John when I was still in my program. And we workshopped it, and the feedback was really nice. And so I've always wanted to write a story about marriage and infidelity. Um, and I sat down and I tried to write it from a woman's point of view, but it just wouldn't come. But as soon as I gave it to the man, so Lucky John is John Roberts' story, first person, his voice. I mean, the story just flowed from me. So, and the first chapter, that idea, we were introduced to John, of course, and we learned that, he's pretty much messing up a lot of stuff in his life. And one of them is his relationship with his son. They collect those state quarters. Remember when those first came out and people had those books that look like big menus and you put the different state quarters in it? Well, he's messing that up with his son. And that was really the idea for just a short story because my daughter and I did it. And the title was going to be Don't Spend Minnesota. That Minnesota quarter. It was the last one. And well, anyway, but he just kept going and going and going with the story. And then, the novel was born.
I love that you say that because isn't that the way it happens? Characters just take us. They just take us where they're going, and we're on for the ride. Right? As you said, the story just poured out of you. So that is awesome. So now you have this brand new one, and I'm so intrigued by it. First of all, I am a big Jane Austen fan.
Oh, look.
So I was so excited that, and then to reimagine a story. And so just tell us all about the Delaney Bennetts. Tell us about this.
So the Delaney Bennetts they're an African-American family living in the fictional town of Meriton, North Carolina, working with the fictional historical Black college, Martin Delaney University. And the Bennett family are original founders of the university. So that's why they're called the Delaney Bennetts, right? That's what the community refers to them as, the Delaney Bennetts. So, this, the original title was Black Pride. And I started this story with my niece during a National Novel Writing Month in November.
Oh, yes, November. Yes.
Which is coming up, where you're challenged to write, what is it, 50,000 words?
50,000 words in 30 days.
Yeah, and we both love the original Pride and Prejudice. After Miss Austen, her work fell into the public domain. You saw everybody was doing these updates and reimaginings and everything. And I told my niece, Kristen, I said, let's do it. This was in 2018. So we started, and I've never won an Anno, so I stopped entering it. And it just sat on the first couple chapters sat on my laptop for a while, and Lucky John came out, and then it was during the pandemic lockdown where I was looking for something to do, and it came up again. So I would say I started this.
Yeah, hold it up so we can see.
Probably in 2021.
That's beautiful. I love the cover.
Thank you. So I started in 2021. I have a weekly group of writers. We meet every week. So I was just giving them chapters. They were giving me feedback, and then it just took off. So
wonderful. That is so cool. And when does it come out?
October 5th, a week from tomorrow.
October 5th. That is awesome. So this will be aired after that. Okay. But you'll know that it's a brand new book and people will be looking for it. It sounds so good. I cannot wait to read it and review it. It just sounds awesome. So I fall in love with my protagonists. And I even have a fondness for my villains. So wondered, what did you really like about both your protagonist in the Delaney Bennetts and even what you liked about John?
I'll start with John. He was a tough character. I call him as the person you love to hate. And once you get through the first chapter, which as a writer, that's the death. You got to hook him on the first chapter. It gets better. And I think he redeems himself at the end. But recently, one of my girlfriends told me that she hated him. But I like John because he's not afraid. He's very vulnerable, right? He shows his vulnerability. He's very vulnerable. And he just has this desperation about him that he wants to make things right, but he doesn't know how, right? And he angers and upsets people in the process. So that's
Yeah.
what I liked about him. And I also like because the story introduced me to the historical fiction aspect of it, because there's a bit that takes place in Galveston on the original Juneteenth, and then moving from there. So that was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun. So,
And how about the new book?
and so with the Delaney Bennett's, I love when it was all done and dusted and everything. I thought about it and I think, you know what? The women are really strong in this book, right? You know, the original Pride and Prejudice, the men swoop in with their wealth and whatever. But that's not it in this book. These women will do just fine without these men's money. And at some point the men kind of realize that, right? So I love Lizzie Bennett. She is the second oldest Bennett. I kept the names. I kept all the names in the original,
cool.
because thinking of characters' names is really hard for me. So I was just like, okay, I'll just names. So we have, Bennett, Darcy, Bingley, Lucas's. So, but Lizzie Bennett is the second oldest, and her thing is so it's set in 1999, and she's a big fan of rap and hip hop, right? And she teaches that. And that is the conflict between her and the Darcy character, because he's like, like it's all that. So she's very bold, she's very daring, she loves her family, fights for her family. So that's what to answer your question, that's what I like about her. I think people will really.
I like her too. She
Yeah, the
sounds
feedback
great.
on her has been really positive, so I'm very happy about that.
That's very, very good. Congratulations.
Thank
That
you.
is awesome. So you also teach writing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that
Um,
business you've got going.
so my creative writing business is called Rose Writers Workshops, and I began that in 2009. I am a Amherst Writers and Artists certified workshop. So I would do creative workshops for beginning writers, returning writers, experienced writers, and it was a generative workshop. Amherst Writers and Artists, their thing is to create a safe space for writers to come and feel free to write what comes, share. We have workshop guidelines and practices that create a safe and encouraging environment. So I did that for, 10 plus years, loved it, met so many wonderful writers. I mean, it's just amazing that people, they would churn out this wonderful prose on the spot, right? And I just want to, you need to write, you need to write, you need to write a book. But they're just like, no, I just want to write, it's just fun, it was a hobby for them. And us, me being, professional, I'm trying to drag them, to the publishing side, but they're very happy just doing that. I have clients come for years, sign up for workshops for years, to have a space to write their stories. So
It's wonderful. Maybe you
yeah,
should do an anthology of your students' stories.
yeah. I was publishing them on my blog, but that got to be too much, and I was trying not to do anything that seemed competitive, which was kind of,
Yes.
that kind
Yes. That takes away the safe space, kind of, right?
right.
Yeah. So are you working on anything now? Are you working on a new book?
I am. My next book was actually supposed to be my second book, but then this baby took over. it's a prequel to Lucky John as it's historical fiction, starting in, as I said, on the original Juneteenth in Galveston Island. And it follows Lucky John's main character, John Roberts, his great great grandfather, as he leaves Galveston and ends up in the citrus industry in Southern California. So,
Wow.
yeah. So
How
you
fun.
got historical fiction too, correct?
I just have one, I change genres constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So my latest one, True Grace, is my first historical fiction. And
Okay.
it came out it's set in 1924. And
Okay.
people tell me if you stick with one genre, then people who love that genre will follow you. But I wrote a murder mystery, I wrote, you know, family saga, I wrote historical fiction. So
Mm-hmm.
I just like learning new things.
Yeah, I've heard that too, Karen. Because this book is a lot different than Lucky John, and the next one will probably be more in the Lucky John vein. But I know some authors who have um, written versions of Jane Austen's, Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, Persuasion. They have a series, but I really can't see myself
Yeah. You got
doing
to
it
follow your
again.
heart, right?
Yeah,
You got to
yeah.
follow your muse, wherever your
Mhm,
muse takes you, that is
mhm,
what you have to do. So, um, as you think about all of the reading, you were teaching children how to write, you've teaching adults how to write. There are authors that just really had a profound effect on you.
mhm. Um, yeah, you gave me that question in advance, and we writers we get that question a lot, and I never know how to answer it. So I went to my bookshelf to see, and this book by J. California Cooper popped up. Have you heard of her?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so she passed away recently. She's an African American writer, and I said this is her because she writes beautiful, deep, complex stories about the Black diaspora in the past, probably in the 60s or 40s. But her writing is really simple and straightforward. It's not flowery. It's not, esoteric like a la Toni Morrison, who's a beautiful writer, and let's see, Alice Walker. Her story. She taught me that you can be a strong storyteller with simple prose. Does
Yes,
that make
that's what
sense?
I write too. I
Yeah,
write straightforward prose.
yeah, straightforward, simple. But it's so engrossing, her stories. So I would say her, and then also Flannery O'Connor, her short stories, because
Mm,
yeah, her short stories they're a kick, right? And I know she's kind of fallen out of favor because her stories are set in the South in the 50s. So, of course, that word pops up a lot in people. And so people kind of shy away from her. But in grad school, I was reading a book by Toni Morrison called um, Whiteness and the Literary Imagination. And she really loved Flannery O'Connor. And so does Alice Walker. They think she's a fabulous writer. They love how she portrays the South. It's honest, it's real, and it's not racist or derogative at all. So yeah, I really love her stories because yeah,
right.
I like them because there's more beneath the story than what's on the surface. So,
Hmm. That
so
sounds very good. That
yeah.
sounds really
Now
intriguing.
I know how to answer that question. People ask me, I
Because
don't
I
know.
made you. I
Yeah,
made you.
thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So, how can our audience find you if they want to buy your new book, buy her new book, if you want to take a writing class with you, or what's the best way for the audience to be in touch with you?
I would think the easiest way would be to find me on Instagram at RW Writes, or you could just type in Desiree Kannel. So that would be Rose Writers Writes. Go to my website, DesireeCannel.com or RoseWriters.com. I have two websites. Which one did you look at for this?
So I followed the link that you gave me,
Oh, okay.
and so it started, or maybe it was just in your signature.
Okay.
So it's a
Yeah.
beautiful website. I just couldn't find anything about the book.
That's not
But
easy.
now I see you fixed all of that and it's great. It's
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I
So
had some
go to her
website
website.
issues
It's
about it.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you. Yeah.
I want to thank you so much, Desiree. This has
You
just
are
been
very welcome.
fun. I'm
Thank
so glad
you.
that we met, that we had a chance to have this conversation.
Hmm.
And I hope all of you have enjoyed meeting Desiree, that you will follow her, that you will buy her book, that you will read her book, and then you will write her and say, I met you. And what are you reading? What are you writing? Until next time, everybody. Thanks so much. Bye bye.
Thank you, Karen.